Here we go. We got music. I hope this is playing. I hope you can hear this at home.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah, we can, because I'm getting the echo on my stream.
Oh, good. Well, this is the I Read Comic Books podcast. I am your host, Mike Rapin. Joining me this week, Father Time and Baby New Year, Brian Murray.
Hello.
Danny. How are
Hi,
you?
everyone.
How are you guys doing tonight? Thank you so much. We are here for a very special live episode of I Read Comic Books. I hope you're watching this live on YouTube. I have no idea if this is actually going to live or survive past tonight's recording, because today we are trying out a brand new thing, and you're going to see all of the weird gestures and mannerisms and all sorts of strange things that we do when we're not on camera recording this show. But today we're going to be talking about comic books, because we're just going to try to play this as casual as possible, despite my over preparedness and asking Danny and Brian to show up a half hour before we recorded, just because I wasn't sure what was going to happen. So thank you both for joining me this week. For the show. If you're live, please chat with us. We want to have a conversation with you guys, talk about the comics that we're talking about. We want to know what you're reading. But I guess I'll get into the questions that I have to ask for every single episode, including these live episodes. And that is, how have you been? How have comic books been? Let's start with you, Danny.
Well, Mike, I've been doing great. It was a really nice break for the holidays, and yeah, I was looking forward to doing this. I like streaming live, so hopefully
Yeah.
some
I mean,
people
you do
show
this
up.
every
And
week for your show, almost every week, right?
yeah, we do it a lot. I just did a watch along yesterday too for Bleach, so I'm all over the place.
This is
Uh,
just regular business for you.
that's right. Yeah. But it's been great. So I'm glad we're doing this, and I'm glad we get to talk about comics in the middle of the week, which felt weird because usually we record on a Sunday, right?
Mm-hmm.
But because of the break, I read enough stuff that I was like, oh, don't worry, I could talk about comics. We could do this again on Thursday, and I'll have more stuff to
Yeah,
talk
exactly.
about.
I mean, like, we usually most of us, I think, read enough comics that we could do
Yeah.
this every week, and we could talk about comics constantly. I mean, especially with the holidays. Who wasn't reading comics over the holidays? I don't know. But yeah, I guess, Danny, what did you get into? I guess how was everything? And yeah, yes, Brian.
Oh, no, you asked who hasn't been reading comics over the break, and
Oh, okay.
that's me.
I just want see. Usually, we use these gestures to be like, "Hey, Mike, you've done something and you've totally screwed up."
Yeah.
But okay, Danny, I guess how have you been? What have you been reading?
Well, the first thing I read, and this is weird because once again, I was doing this on a Tuesday. DC Comics come out on Tuesday. So I
Oh,
read
right.
the yeah. So I read the Action Comics 1050, which is weird to say a number that high on a book. You can only do it for a few titles.
Mm-hmm.
This is a new anthology. Well, yeah, it's kind of an anthology. It's written by Philip Kennedy Johnson, Tom Taylor, and Joshua Williamson, with art by Mark Perkins, Clayton Henry, and Nick Dragotta. So this is a kind of the new launching point for the Superman stuff, and it's a little bit of a preview of their Dawn of DC stuff that's going to launch fully in January. Uh, the story, Lex Luthor is up to some nonsense again because that's what he does,
It's doing
and it's
takes
not going to
again.
go well for Superman and his family. Uh, the one thing that really surprised me was I didn't realize how much I wanted to see a Nick Dragotta Superman until I saw it in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
Like his art is amazing. I think what was the book we just finished talking about? The Image book that looks like a manga. Um,
His of course I
yeah, I
can't
know.
remember.
Well, that book, you guys go back and listen to a few episodes ago.
Ghost
Uh,
Cage. Ghost Cage is
Ghost
what the name
Cage.
of it was.
Thank you. Yeah. So like seeing his art style in a DC book, like I was really impressed.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, he's not taking any of the titles that are going to launch out of this. So we have Philip K. Johnson will continue writing Action Comics. Tom Taylor is going to continue with John Kent in the Adventures of Superman, John Kent, and then Joshua Williamson's taking over the Superman book. But yeah, unfortunately, Nick Dragotta is not in any of these. But if you want to see some Dragotta Superman art, go check out this Action Comics. It's really fun. I like when they do sometimes these resets if they do them right in the series, like when everybody made when Doctor Strange made everyone forget who Daredevil was and stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
It's very similar vibes, so you can reset and relaunch the character. because as of right now, for some reason, everyone knows who Clark Kent is. Everyone knows who like that he's Superman. So it's been a long time. It's been like that for a long time. So I think they want to do something different or bring it back to what it was before.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I missed all the Warworld stuff on Action Comics, but I think I might go back and read it because Philip K. Johnson, he's doing really cool stuff in Alien, so I can't imagine he's gonna do wrong in the Action Comics title.
Yeah, man, I feel like Phil Kennedy Johnson is one of those creators where I'm like, I want to try everything that he's done because he's done a handful of consistent books where I'm like, okay, whatever you want to do next, I'm up for it, at least for an issue, right? I I swear to God, if I start buying more DC comics than Marvel comics in 2023, I'm ending this podcast. I'm renaming it. We're gonna have to go in a different direction. I think like all things are changing. But yeah, it's pretty wild. I'm getting word from folks on Discord that our YouTube was not working. I apologize if you're watching on YouTube. It should be public now. For some reason,
It is. I just checked.
YouTube
Yeah,
is awesome, and they're just like, hey, you want to start a stream? By default, it's going to be private. And when you're in the stream manager, you can't change it. You have to go back out to a different page and change it to public. So, learning a lot about live streaming tonight. But if you're joining us on YouTube, welcome. Anyways, Danny, it's exciting to hear that Phil Kennedy Johnson is on an Action Comics book. Do you know if moving forward this is going to continue to be a like anthology of multiple creators on one book, or is it just because this is Action Comics 1050?
I think the Action Comics will focus on like the Superman family because we've seen some preview art by Dan Mora
Mm-hmm.
where we see like everybody with a new suit and everything. So I think that's what Action Comics is going to be. I think Superman will focus mainly on Clark Kent, and then the Tom Taylor book will be on John Kent. So yeah, they're definitely spreading it out. But uh, that's kind of what they did with Rebirth, with Detective Comics, where they sent the Bat Family off to Detective Comics and they split it up. So it
Mm-hmm.
seems like they're up to their old tricks again, trying to get me to buy three different series.
Gotcha.
But it's
Gotcha.
working. So yeah, yeah.
I
But that
mean,
was fun.
well, here's the thing. Like, I don't know if you're a good gauge as to whether or not something's working, Danny, because
I am not.
How many Spawn covers you got so far?
yeah.
Not as many as I want. I'll tell you that much.
Oh my goodness. Oh man, that's great. Well, I guess Danny, tell us a little bit more about one more book that you've got, and then we'll bounce over to Brian.
Yeah, sure. Well, the other book I want to talk about is X-Men Annual #1. This is how how out of left field, right? Me talking about the X-Men.
Yeah.
But the annuals are always good because usually they're like a standalone thing, which
Mm-hmm.
is this one. That's kind of what it was. This one's written by Steve Fox with art by Andrea DeVito, colors by Sebastian Cheng, and letters by Clayton Cowles. This one focuses all in Firestar, who's the new member, one of the new members of the X-Men after the Hellfire Gala of this year. I kind of like that they're changing the roster every year. I hope they continue to do that. I think it's fun to have like a full year of one team and then change it up.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, like, this is how comics should just be done now. But that's a whole other conversation. Sure.
yeah, although I mean, yeah, and so in to no surprise, as we focus on this meeting, I didn't realize how complicated of a past Firestar had, because I
Mm-hmm.
just know her from like hanging out with Iceman and Spider-Man from the cartoon,
Right.
which then they
Right.
brought that over into. I love when they bring that into the comics, which they've done it a lot recently. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
if especially if you're reading the Dark Web stuff with like X-Men and Spider-Man hanging out together, like you see a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but yeah, she's had a rough. Like it's been a rough past. She was an Avenger. She was like she had an illness for a long time, and she lost her powers. But now that everyone gets to come back to Krakoa, like some of the what are they called? The Hellions, because she used to be a Hellion. Because of course, they're giving her like they're just giving her a lot of shit about joining, like being on the X-Men team as opposed to hanging out with the Hellions that are in Krakoa. So a lot of conflict for Firestar. So this was a fun story of a character I don't read much about, and I really can't complain. This X-Men title has been super solid for the past couple of years. So
Dude, you're telling me who's on this? So Steve Fox is the writer on this annual, but like
yeah,
honestly, like the
usually
X-Men
Gary
title.
Duggan. Yeah,
Yeah,
Gary Duggan's on the main title usually, but
yeah.
this was a nice change of pace.
Yeah, Gary Duggan is an incredible writer. I feel like everything that I'm picking up from him right now and have picked up from him over the last couple of years have been consistently good. Like I think I said this on a previous episode. Like Gary Duggan is not a knock it out of the park every single issue. Oh my God, you're on the floor rolling around because you can't believe how this issue
Yeah.
ended or whatever. Like that's very much a like Tom Taylor kind of thing that I think can get tiring after a certain amount of time. But Gary Duggan consistently creates comics that when you read over a long form, you go, damn, that is a really, really good, consistent run that I enjoy from start to finish. There's highs and lows. There's character development that's really, really good. So yeah, and his X-Men is no different. I've absolutely loved it. It's like him and Ed Brisson are kicking butt in the X titles right now. And I totally love it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
but I'm glad to
Well,
hear this annual was good because I haven't read it yet, but I obviously looking forward to it. But
it's
annuals are always a
yeah,
grab
it's a
bag
hit or
for
miss.
quality.
But it's almost as if these like back in the day it was a one and done comic. It's almost as if
Hmm.
those are like those really work and that's really good. You don't have to write every comic for the trade
Hmm.
because that's been the same like it for
Blasphemy.
Action Comics it was the same. It was just a one and done story.
Yeah,
So
yeah, no, totally, I totally agree with that. Well, I guess Brian, how have you been? How have comic books been? Let's jump over to you.
I've been good. I was able to leave my house for the first time in several days today.
Nice.
So that's your West Michigan weather watch. Shit's cold, man.
Yeah.
yeah.
We got like 20 inches of snow or something like that over the weekend. And while I did not use that time to read comics, I did shortly before the break decide I was going to read Chainsaw Man.
Oh no, I'm very
Yeah,
worried.
well, I'll tell you, I really enjoyed the first quarter of Chainsaw Man.
Okay.
I read the entire. I want to say it was the first like 99 issues or something like that, like the public safety arc, whatever they called it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Um, I don't know
feel free
why I
to
kept reading it.
discuss anything as of chapter 39. I looked it up to see where I am in the anime, and that's kind of where it ends.
Okay.
So,
Well,
so just
the main reason why I stopped enjoying myself has definitely already happened in the anime, and that was when the characters I liked started dying every
Ah.
issue.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And the characters are the main reason I like get into any book.
mhm.
So I'm just like, okay, so if you're dead and you're dead, you're going to die. Why am I doing this?
Uh,
The only person who I know is going to survive is Denji, and I can't fucking stand him.
Brian, remember what is the name of the series?
That's
Yeah,
the only
it's
reason
not
I know he's
Chainsaw Man and
safe.
Friends.
Well, okay. So what I'm getting is that you weren't a huge fan of it, but there was something that you did like about it. I guess like what
When
was it that drew you to the book that like kept you, going beyond just the first handful of chapters? Because I think that's where a lot of more recent manga, it's make or break within
Mhm.
4 or 5 chapters when I'm digging into this stuff. So obviously you kept going up through volume 11.
yeah, when it first starts out, it's very like silly and goofy and
Mm-hmm.
fun.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can't remember where it was in the manga, but it's like issue 5 or 6 of the show. It just stops being fun anymore.
Yeah.
And like they still have like the brutal over the top violent action scenes,
Mm-hmm.
which do not work on the page at all, by the way.
Yeah.
It's impossible to follow what's happening in that manga.
Mm-hmm. I'll
Um,
give you that.
so it hangs on to that, but it loses a lot of the charm that the show starts off with. And if I'm no longer having fun, I was like wanting to know what's going to happen is only going to carry me so far. And apparently it carried me for like 70 more chapters. But
Brian, you sound like one of the what's the character? It's the girl with the knife that just she's just looking forward to the next payday.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like her. The only reason she's sticking around is because like there's a little reward in the coming up. That's
I
kind of what it sounds like. You're just in special in the Division 4, and you're just living paycheck to paycheck to the next chapter of Chainsaw Man.
I saw a comment on, I think it was on the Crunchyroll on the episode, and they're just like saying that she's best girl by process of elimination.
I mean, you're not wrong.
Yeah.
If you know, for folks out there who maybe haven't read or watched the Chainsaw Man anime or manga, we I think we at least recommend the first couple of volumes because I do agree with you, Brian. The series takes a very tonal shift after about 20 or 30 issues or chapters when we find out like where the story start like wanted to go, which is why I feel like the creator on the whole is so strange. I feel like a lot of people either it's like a very love hate type of story with them, and I think the first half of the anime definitely is going to hook people in, and I don't know how they're going to keep people hooked given where people who have read the entire released version of Chainsaw Man know where the series is going. Because I agree with you, like the fun goofiness is what keeps me coming back to wanting to watch the anime, but I know that like it does get really dark and it just becomes super serious and heavy for the remainder of what is in this what you called the first arc, right?
Yeah, and I think it's not even just that it's super serious and heavy. It's it's bleak to the point of hopelessness,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like they've established that nothing good is going to happen to any of these characters ever. And at a certain point, I'm just like, okay, then good luck with that. I don't,
Well, I will say, given that you have read the first like arc, right, of like 99 chapters or whatever it is, the goofiness that made me love the original portion of Chainsaw Man somehow manages to make its way back into the story in the new arc that came out after like 2 years off, right? Um, Denji goes back to being an idiot, and it's great. But if again, I totally understand if
agree
you're
or
put off.
disagree on that.
Wait. Well, have you read the new stuff that's come out since like the hiatus?
No,
Okay.
I stopped reading after the conclusion of the public safety stuff.
Okay. Um, well, I'm only going to try to sell you so hard on it, but if you ever feel the inkling, I think that the first arc back after that first break is worth the read. Just because the stupidity of Denji makes it fun. But either way, I'm glad at
Yeah,
least you read a bunch of it because I do love Chainsaw Man with like my whole heart. So I'm glad that you read it.
with your
Brian,
whole monster heart.
Yes.
yeah, Brian,
Oh, I got
I
this
do want to
tattoo
sell
that's a
you.
chainsaw. Actually, no. Uh,
I do
Mike
want to
has
sell
the
you
comic
on
book
the
devil
anime.
in his chest. I
I
did
do want to
watch
sell
the
you on
anime.
the anime, Brian, because Mappa animated this, and it like every like the songs are great. Like the soundtrack is just fantastic for the anime. Oh my
dude, can
god,
we talk about that opening? There's
It's
no
so
anime
good.
that I want to watch the beginning of over and over and
yeah,
over except for Chainsaw Man. That
yeah,
song is amazing. The animation for that opening is still funny every single time. I love it to
yep.
death. It's incredible. But Brian, you've seen this, right? You've seen the 10 episodes or whatever that have been out?
I was watching it in I was watching the dubs as they came
Okay.
out.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Because the English voice cast is phenomenal.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, I stopped episode 5 or 6, I think. Right when things
There's
got grimdark edgelord, and I was like, I don't
yeah.
want this anymore.
Right. But you were there for the puke episode, and that's all that matters. Uh,
Yeah, yeah, I was there
I
for that.
I hadn't read the manga, so I knew something was coming because the whole world kept telling me something. Oh, it's
mhm.
coming. I didn't know what it was. I didn't look into it. But then after I saw it, I went on the internet to see is this what everybody and I think Mappa handled it really well. If you haven't seen it, I mean, as I guess as well as you could handle something like that.
Yeah,
Uh, but yeah, it was like the reaction on the internet was great. I love seeing they do a new closing credits for every episode, which is amazing.
So cool.
Like a whole new animation and a song, like everything. Like it's incredible. Mappa really went. It's gonna be hard to pick a favorite anime of the year this year. Like
Hmm.
really.
yeah, they
I
So
they
already
did
know.
great work. I just wish it was on a better show.
Well,
Wow. Okay. Shots fired today. I want to, I guess, before we continue further down that road, I do want to say hello to everybody who's watching live. We have a bunch of people watching, which is awesome. Apparently, we have 10 viewers on Twitch. We've got another like 7 or 8 people on YouTube. If you're there, say hello. Hello to Furret. Hello to CK. Hello, Jalamprex. Hello, everybody out there. We're hanging out. Let's talk. What comics are you reading? We are eventually going to get to the top of our pile. And if you listen to I Read Comic Books in the past, you know that we love to shout out the folks who are listening live on our Discord about what books they're reading. So let me know what book you are reading, and I'm going to make sure to shout it out when we get to the top of our pile. So post it in the chat. I'll try to keep track of it. And if I miss you, I'll apologize. I'll send you a sticker in the mail or something like that. Don't hold me to that. But let
I'll
me let
make
me
fun of
talk.
whatever anime you enjoy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And if you want us to just rag on your favorite anime, let us know. But let me talk about a book or two that I read. And Danny, I'll pitch it back to you for the other book that you've got on your list here. Um, I sat down and read Chroma #2. This is by Lorenzo Di Felici. If you haven't read the first issue of this, it's a really cool story that plays with color. It's a kind of comic that I think can only ever be a comic. We all saw Pleasantville. It didn't work. It's a gross movie. That that's the only comparison that I can make to it. But no, Chroma is really cool. It's a story about a beast that has erased or has forced these people who have survived on this world to erase all of the color from themselves intentionally, not through magical means, but just by selective breeding and choices and all this other weird stuff that's kind of dark when you look beyond the surface of it. And it turns out that that may have all been just a bunch of garbage spouted by the elders of this community. In the second issue of this series, we explore that idea further, and we also get outside of the community that is established in the first issue, following a specific character from the first issue. And we see Lorenzo Di Felici really showing how impressive of a creator they are, how majestic they're able to create a landscape and creatures and a world. It's hard for me to describe how beautiful this book is because it's a book or a comic book and it's got colors in it. Like, that is really not a great way to describe this book, but when you see this on page, the actual vibrancy of things, like I saw this in the comic shop when I went and visited recently. I read it on my iPad, and it's just an absolutely beautiful comic. Like, I'm talking, remember that first time you saw Fiona Staples' art on the cover of Saga? It's like that, the way that this book looks. And I really, really love that. I think that what they're doing with this series is super impressive in terms of just playing with something that can really only be done in comics and making that a narrative portion of the story. I'm super duper impressed, and I really love this book. It's like a 5-issue mini series called Chroma, Kroma. If you're interested in it, I highly recommend you go grab it from Image. If not, this is going to be a great collection to have on your shelf because one, it looks pretty, and two, Image usually does a good job of collecting their miniseries in a way that's high quality, way better than all the Marvel trades that I've been buying recently, because I really wanted to. I'll get on that soapbox later, but yeah, it's a really, really fun book. I highly recommend it. Have you guys read this at all, Danny? It's not, looks like you've maybe checked this out.
yeah. I mean, so I when I read a preview for this, and it did not really do it justice to the book. Like, this is one of the books where I think reading it physically, it really changes everything. But even reading it digitally, like the just looking at the first page, full of color, and not knowing where the story was gonna go,
Mm-hmm.
it's amazing. And then as you get through the book, like Mike said, like they do something that you can really only do in this medium, uh, just because of the way the story is being told. I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
when Mike was describing the premise, I kept thinking of like, oh, this is what the village could have been, and it could have been so much better. Uh, instead of instead of the garbage movie we got, uh, but yeah, Chroma is amazing. Like, I can't wait for it to be collected. I do want to read it in trade because I think it'll read better that way.
Oh,
Uh,
totally, totally.
you can tell, like, a lot of these books, like Gospel, that Image is also doing, like all these little books that they're breaking up in a miniseries. I, I'm sure originally these were intended for just a standalone graphic novel, but as Mike has mentioned in the past few weeks, like there's a reason why these things are serialized, and especially because the creators, like, there's more for them to, like, more more time for them to talk about their comic book and be in people's minds when it's spread out issue by issue. But yeah, I highly recommend Chrome as well. um I can't wait to get to once it's all out so I can go back and read it.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah. let me talk about one more book that I've also read. I'm gonna break Danny's heart with this one, so I'm just gonna
Oh
say it. And I'm
no.
probably gonna make a lot of people at home very mad, but I had to say it because I was so hyped for this book when I saw it was coming out. And this is Danger Street #1. This is
Oh
by Tom
no.
King, Jorge Fornes. The book, I know. See, I knew like
Somebody
Danny's
call
getting up.
Paul. Get
Yeah,
Paul
he's
on the
done.
line.
Yeah, let's get Paul JC on the line real quick so he can call in and hear this live. I'm gonna break his heart, but really, I don't want to be a jerk, but I also don't think this book was really good. That's what I wrote in my notes. It's a shame because the art is amazing, right? Like Fornes is one of the best artists in the game right now, especially when it comes to Big Two comics, or I should say, at the Big Two, he is probably one of the best comic creators that we've seen in a while, and I really love their art. However, this book is weird, 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 weird. Like it's very similar to Batman Killing Time, but it in that it tries to tell multiple things at the same time, creating a timeline for you as the story goes on. But for some reason, this story didn't click with me, and I read this issue twice. Right, this is me really wanting to like this issue, and yet here I am looking at this book over and over and going, I don't understand what's actually going on. Is this all a prank? Am I being pranked by this book? And yet it just didn't click for me. I could see how maybe for other people it does click. It just the weird non-linear, semi-linear storytelling like strategy that Tom King has been applying to this and Killing Time, another book that I ultimately didn't like by the end, like was just didn't work for me. I don't know. I think the thing that Killing Time had going for it was at least there was a cool heist in the middle of it, but I don't know ultimately what Danger Street #1 was about, except for the part where they mentioned some GC characters that I was aware of. But then, like, how did that actually play out and what was the importance? I don't really know. I feel like I want to try this once it finishes up and gets collected because I think maybe this will work better as like a, when you watch a weird experimental film and you don't really get it in the first 20 minutes and you're like, I could just turn this off. But I could also stick around for the next 60 minutes and maybe it'll actually work for me. Because yeah, but I don't know where I was going with that. I also saw a movie called like that I'm not going to mention. It doesn't matter. I don't want to make everybody mad here tonight with all the things that I have been watching
Talking
and
about
reading that I
Tenet.
don't like. No, we're not talking about Tenet. That's a different subject altogether. But anyways, I was unfortunately that I didn't like this, but man, Jorge Fornes' art is unparalleled in this book. Even with the stuff that I didn't like, it's still a beautiful book to look at. So,
I don't know, Mike. The chat wants to hear the movie.
well, okay. Now I got to pull up my letterbox because we got to actually.
Okay.
I
Well,
want to get the
while you
name
pull
right.
that up, so Tom
Yeah,
King writes two types of books. He
yeah.
writes books that work really well, issue by issue, and then he writes real books that you're probably supposed to read all at once. Uh, like Killing Time, I also did not enjoy the first chapter when I read it. Oh, the first issue when I read it all. But then once I read the whole thing completely, it made more
Hmm.
sense because it really is like the whole thing goes together and you see the bigger picture. Rorschach, same
Yeah,
thing. Any of these mysteries that Tom King is doing, and Rorschach's the book that he just did with Fornes previous to this one.
yeah, yeah.
That one, I could not get to the. It was so hard to read issue by issue because he's giving you so much stuff all at once.
Hmm.
So I completely understand. But I think you might have a better time if you go back and try it again once it's all complete.
That's the thing. Rorschach, I didn't want to read because I refuse to engage in DC creating more Watchmen related work. But I'll go borrow it on Hoopla. I'm not going to pay for it directly,
Yeah.
but I will go borrow it on Hoopla. But yeah, like I want to like this stuff, right? I think Tom King is a pretty good writer on the whole. Um, but
Sorry, I was
I,
looking at
I think
Ferd's
Furt
comments.
nailed it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. For it in the chat, I did see that Tom King writes two types of books: good books and books that don't have Batman in it. um, which you know what? Sure. But okay, so the movie I was going to talk about, I did want to say earlier, which I couldn't think of the name of, is Strawberry Mansion, a really interesting, low budget experimental movie that I ultimately didn't like, but I thought was like, it's okay, and I almost wanted to give up after 20 minutes. I did fall asleep watching it twice. But that's also because I was
A
on the
glowing
train.
endorsement.
Yeah, I know. It's great. Anyways, that's my review of it. If anybody wants to look at that, I posted that in the
Let
Twitch
us know
chat.
how many times you fell asleep watching this stream.
Well,
Uh,
yeah. Anyways,
Z's
I
in the
guess
chat if you fell asleep watching a movie.
yeah. Z's in the chat, baby. Danny, tell us about one more book that you read, and I'll jump into my last one. Then we can move over to a top of our pile.
sure. So the last thing I read was actually a whole series. It's called True Cult, spelled the cool way with V's in it. Uh,
Yeah.
by IDW. This is created by Liana Kangas and Scott Brian Wilson. It's a comic book about fast food workers who accidentally stumble into a satanic cult, and unfortunately, they get caught in like in the middle of everything that they're doing. Uh, I really like Liana Kangas' art. I love getting just the books. Like even if she's not doing interiors, I'll pick up her variant covers. So I was really excited when I saw that she did the interiors for this. I did wait till it was done to go back and read everything because I read issue one, and
Mm-hmm.
I knew that this was gonna be better if I just read the whole thing at once.
Mm-hmm.
Just because of the subject matter, it was kind of heisty at the beginning, but it takes a turn. Like when the whole satanic cult thing comes in, it
Yeah.
really takes a turn.
One would
Uh,
assume.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But it's really fun. The characters are just like weird. I don't know. It was just really charming. Like I really, really enjoyed it. And like I said, I think Kangas's art just really adds another layer on top of all that. So
Totally.
either so whether you want like a little bit of a mystery or like just to figure out with this satanic cult, because it takes a turn also for the supernatural, which I was not expecting either
Heck yeah.
with the first issue. So yeah, this was really fun. Like I haven't started working on any like 2022 list because procrastination is my middle name. Uh, but but I think this might be up there.
Yeah,
So we'll see.
I totally agree with that. This book rules. I backed it on Kickstarter way back in the day just because it's like the pitch was like it's culty, it's fast foody, it's stupid, and it's full of heisty stuff. And I was like, all right, I'm on board. Like this looks awesome. It's got a cool name, and it's such a fun book that it's way too wordy in some ways, but like that's
Yeah,
almost like the funny part of it. Like it's overly wordy for the sake of the comedy bit, and it
it's
totally works.
like kind of like when Midoriya doesn't shut up. Like it's
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
like
yeah.
that. The characters just kind of go on and on and on.
Sure, sure. Yeah, yeah. It's on top of that, like you said, there's characters that are definitely taking the whole story seriously. Then there's characters that aren't, and then there's like it has all of the things that to me make a great comedy
Yeah.
movie, right? Like if someone pitched True Cult to me as like a 93-minute comedy movie, it would work end to end. And that's really how this book reads. I don't want to like continue to make this comic book movie pairing, but like if you
Mhm.
need a pitch idea of what you're gonna get with True Cult 1 through 5, it's a 93-minute comedy that works and is funny from beginning until the
Mhm.
very final moments.
But
It's really, really well done. And Congas's art is incredible. I think Scott Brian Wilson does a great job of just
yeah,
like adding these really bright characters that are very, very like written in such a way that it's impressive at how different their voices are and how like when they all clash in scenes together, you're like, this is information overload, and that is so funny. It's really, really good.
yeah. My favorite character is the girl that's trying to get a job.
Yeah, this is what I yeah,
She's so good.
you and I are on the same page here. Yeah,
It's so good. So yeah, highly recommend that. Go check it out. It's all out now. I'm sure there'll be a collected. And IDW does really nice collected editions too.
they do.
If you've ever picked up a Ninja Turtle book, you know what I'm talking
I
about.
well, they may only do that for Ninja Turtles. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true.
And well, that's the thing. Do they do it? I would assume they would do it for all their books.
Yeah,
The
because
the
the whole
hardcover copy of Last Ronin that I've got is like one of the nicest books that I have on
yeah.
my shelf. But yeah,
But even then, they are like a publisher that focuses on like restoring a lot of collections. So they are like
totally.
they have good printing. Even if they're not going to give all the books the royal treatment, they come
Hmm.
from quality stock. So yeah, I can't wait to see what that looks like. But until then,
Yeah,
I just picked up every issue and it was so much fun.
yeah,
But
that book
Mike,
rules. I'm glad that you found it, and enjoyed it because
great.
it's such a fun book.
What's the other book you want to talk about, Mike? And hopefully
Oh
this one
yeah,
doesn't break my
I've
heart
got one more
on
that I want to
camera.
talk about. It is a book of I think extreme contention on our Discord as well as among some of the IRCB folks. But it is Bloodstained Teeth number 6 and 7. This is written by Christian Ward with art for 6 and 7 by both Mac Chatter and Patrick Reynolds. Mac Chatter comes in to do a bonus issue. Patrick Reynolds is back for issue 7. Both issues feature colors by Heather Moore with letters by Hassan Otsmani El How. And honestly, I just love this book. It's so stupid. right? It's a guy who's a vampire, and he's like a firstborn vampire, and for money and for various services, whatever, he has turned people into vampires because they want to be vampires. Um, it turns out that the Hall of Vampire Elders don't really like that, and so they send their vampire hitman, who is called the Tooth, who is literally a guy with a giant tooth who will just kill you, to beat the shit out of our main character, until he goes and kills all of the sips, the secondary vampires that he's created. This book is really, it's really stupid. It's really fun, and I feel like if you don't take the idea of the story at face value and think this is a comedy, you will totally love this book because it's totally poking fun at every vampire lore you've ever seen. Every issue, especially in the first arc, features like some vampire trope that is stupid and fun, and our main character gets to walk around and basically make fun of that trope, which is great. And the second arc opens with an interesting twist at the center of the story, but then the seventh issue follows the new arc, and to me is probably one of the funniest issues ever, if only, or in this series so far, if only because the idea of like the vampire elder council is such a dumb thing, that I think Twilight totally ruined. And Christian Ward takes that and goes like, what if it was Twilight but dumber? It's really really fun. So if you haven't read this book, it's amazing. I appreciate Fangs in the chat. Thank you, Danny, for that. Fang bangers, thank you. But yeah, this is a great book. If you haven't read it, the first arc, the first volume is out, and Patrick Reynolds' art is unparalleled. And I just want the Eisners to already have like a statue ready for Heather Moore this year. There's no better colored book out there. I mean, maybe this Chroma book that I've been talking about, it looks really, really nice. But Bloodstained Teeth, the first arc, that the colors in that book alone are impressive. I think like if you want some crazy, like, hey man, we're gonna smoke a joint, read a comic book, this book is that. But also it's really, really fun, because the story's fun, the art's amazing, and like the colors will blow your mind. Kind of reminds me of Alexis Zarit. If you've ever read any of the books that he's done, he did a book with Dave Baker very recently, and he's done some other stuff. Space Riders, I think, was the one that really I got turned on him, from over at Black Mask, which it's very neon, it's very bright, and that's really how Bloodstained Teeth feels, but like with art that you won't believe is not like traced off of TV or something. Like Patrick Reynolds' art is phenomenal. He does this incredibly crazy realistic thing that just floors me every single issue. So I love that book. Love that book.
I can't help but get a little nervous whenever a property of any kind is like, we're gonna acknowledge the tropes, because it's real easy to go to shit with that, like, because you have to like embrace the tropes while also making fun of them. Like, you can't just be like, hey, isn't this stupid? Isn't this thing we're doing dumb?
Sure.
Like, you have to on some level embrace the stupid.
Yeah. I mean, maybe this might be also my reading of it, right? I don't know if Christian Ward is like, he doesn't necessarily spend the entire every issue making fun of it. It's just presented as part of the story. And I think it's funny, I guess, the way that it's presented. To me, it feels like it making fun of the tropes, but also playing with them at the same time, or playing with like inside of the established lore of things, right? I don't know. Give it a try, Brian. If you hate it, I'll give you the Mike Rapin money back guarantee, an old thing that I haven't done in forever. But yeah.
I mean, if you can't get Christian Ward art, I think Patrick Reynolds is a really good.
Yeah,
it's really good. I don't want to say supplement because it's not. I think they're both great artists, so it's a good choice.
Yeah. So, anyways, I guess let's move on. We're not going to do a break. I don't know how to do these things with live episodes, so we're not going to do a break. Normally, we do a break here for one of these types of episodes, but let's talk about comics.
I want to
go
comment.
ahead.
I don't know if it's I'm trying to figure out if it's the age of the audience, the people in the Discord, how many more people are on Twitch than watching on the YouTube channel. I don't know if it's because the YouTube are late or because I think younger people skew towards Twitch.
Danny, we established this in previous episodes. Our audience is definitely mid-30s and above. If you're younger than that, we give you a no prize. Okay,
we're just that poggers, Danny.
Oh, my
Poggers,
skin
hell
is
yeah.
cringing.
Poggers in the chat.
Oh
Is
my.
that what kids do? I don't know. I don't use Twitch much, so it's really
Um,
funny. Like I had to get my
thank you
security
for
code to log back in.
yes. Matt gets the prize for not being over 30. So I'm gonna send that over to him. It's gonna be an envelope with nothing. But the
Yeah, it's
famous
gonna be my
IRCB note prize.
chiropractor bill.
Exactly. Um, yeah, I guess hello to every. Oh, Perry Comics over at the YouTube says they are 29. So I guess it's all over the board. We're seeing like a massive jump in numbers. We're trying Twitch and YouTube tonight to see how it works, and at the same time, um, but I guess I don't know. Based off of popularity, we'll see how we're going to do the annual. Because basically, this is all. I guess for those of you who aren't in the know, this is all just a test run for us tonight to see how our annual episode could do a live thing. I'm hopefully going to make things a little bit more interesting. But regardless, I think we're going to do a big fun live episode in January to celebrate the 8th anniversary of I Read Comic Books. So thanks for hanging out with us tonight to test things. But yeah, see, the comics community on YouTube is popping. The problem with that is that the line right there on YouTube is so fine to ride in terms of what is the correct comics community to be in. And
Yeah,
I'm gonna say we're not gonna be a part of the right winger comic or the comics gate garbage shit. I'm just gonna say that out loud. So I'm always hesitant about YouTube because I feel like that pipeline is very easy to start to drift down. But I'm going to just promise you all and say that we're not clipping off the heads of any action figures over here on this channel. And I'm going to move on from that before anybody gets any more uncomfortable. But
Unless you want us to.
that
If that'll get us views,
no, Brian, no.
I will sacrifice this.
No.
Thing. I
Oh, yeah.
don't care about it.
We will destroy Funko Pops on this channel. I will grab my giant Hulk that was gifted to me, and I will smash it with a hammer if it means that people will watch more of our stuff.
I
Sorry,
will not
Danny.
destroy one. Yeah, no, I'm not.
See, this is the thing. It's gonna be we're gonna become a reaction channel where Brian and
Yeah.
I do heinous things that Danny can't believe that we're doing, and he reacts live.
You've already seen me get my heart broken earlier, so live. So now
Yeah.
that's on the internet forever.
That's true.
Uh,
That is true. I did
Now
destroy you with that.
now Tom King won't want to come on the podcast. I was trying to get him on.
Oh man,
But
we were really hoping to get that.
yeah.
Guess it's just never gonna happen. We'll just
It's a good
bombard him
get.
at a convention and then get escorted out of the building. Uh,
He doesn't need security to do it for him. He was in the CIA. He'll do it himself. He'll just put me down like some secret hold.
well, yeah.
I harassed Tom King at Comic Con, and all I got was this stupid chokehold.
Perfect. Somebody said, I got a message from somebody said, I thought you said do penis things. I have no idea what that's in reference to. So this live stream is going swimmingly, I think.
I think YouTube would probably take us down for that.
Yeah.
You'd be
Yes.
surprised what they leave up.
Well, let's move on. Let's talk about comic books once more before we wrap things up here. We're going to talk about comics that are either new or old, or just things that you want to read off of your shelf that have been sitting there forever. This is the top of our pile. I've got some folks on Discord, not on Discord, on Twitch and on YouTube that have given me some books that they're reading. But I guess before we get into that, Brian, what is on the top of your pile?
I'm finally gonna go back and check out Vita Ayala's New Mutants.
Okay. So you're not going to go back and read the Hickman run before that. You're just going to dive right into Ayala. I know that's like a good starting
I'm not
point.
gonna know what's going on either way. So
It's true.
Yeah.
but I know Ayala's work. Like they're a fantastic writer. So
Mhm.
I at least have confidence that I'm gonna at least like enjoy the words, even if I don't understand anything about what they're saying.
Sure. Well, I mean, Rod Reese is on the art for that book, right? So like right away, you've got incredible creative team coming together for something. I guess what has you curious about this book? Is it just to check out what Vita's been up to, or do you have Brian? You want to talk about X-Men here on this podcast? Because I'll do that with you, man.
Yeah,
I honestly have no idea.
Don't
I
be
think I
fooled
remember
by.
you recommending this years ago now.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then having complicated feelings about it later. But
That's comics.
Yes. Yes, I mean that's X-Men comics. But yeah, a lot of people are saying in the chat, Reese is incredible. I think you're going to enjoy it, even just to get really fun versions of Warlock, right? Who's just a fun character to see on page, whether it's someone like Rod Reese or going all the way back to like the old Sienkiewicz days. Like some artists get what Warlock is supposed to look like, and Rod Reese is one of those people. So I'm very excited to hear what you think about this. I do think that even if you don't know what's going on in the Hoxpox world of things, this book will work. At least the first 2/3 of it will work really well. In terms of like they're the new mutants and they're trying to help the young kids and not to be, damn kids on the island. And it's really fun to see the characters who are the adults in the story having to adjust to what historically they are known as being like the younger generation of things. And them kind of coming to terms with that. It's like, oh, we have this responsibility now. We have to help this new generation of mutants figure out how they're going to exist in the world. So yeah, I'm excited to hear what you think about that. As someone who's going into this pretty blind, I think, all things considered.
Almost entirely. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, cool. Danny, what about you? What are you excited for? What's on the top of your pile?
Well, it's another book that came out today. This is Tales from Earth 6, a celebration of Stan Lee, #1, from DC Comics. What? Stan Lee? DC
All right.
Comics in the
Hold
same
on. Mute. How
sentence?
do I kick someone off of this recording right now?
Yeah, let me tell you a story for all the young people in the chat.
Please.
20 years
I'm
ago,
the young people. I have
yeah.
no idea what this is in reference to. So school
So
me, Danny.
20 years ago, DC Comics probably just paid a lot of money to Stan Lee to do a series where it's called Just Imagine. And it was
Everyone do their Stanley impression right now.
great title,
Uh,
yeah.
Sanders not
Uh,
here to edit out that can crack, Mike.
no, I'm doing that intentionally for him because I know he's watching at home and he hates this.
so DC told Stanley, can you reimagine all like a bunch of characters from the DC Comics in this one series? So it was like a series of one shots, or maybe just I've actually haven't read all of them. I've only looked at a few that I found like a half price books or something.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But yeah, he reimagined everyone like Batman, Wonder Woman, Superman, Green Lantern, The Flash, Shazam. So this new book, I guess, as a celebration of 20 years or as a cash grab from DC, however you want to look at it, they put out a 96-page anthology
Okay.
where that's going to focus on 10 different stories by a plethora of creators that include Mark Waid, Kenny Porter, Megan Fitzmartin. So, like all the people that they have doing a lot of the current books, they're just going to grab one of these characters that Stanley reimagined and then do another story in that same world. So that's
Gotcha.
kind of why it's called Earth 6. I'm very excited. I didn't get to read it over the weekend to do an actual review because it is 96 pages.
Mm-hmm.
So that usually requires a little bit more time. But I'm excited because I want to read this and then maybe go back and hunt down the original series. I'm sure it's on the DC Infinite service.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, expect in the next few weeks for me to talk about more Stanley comics. I think I'm on the podcast in January at some point. So
Yeah, I've got you coming back right after the first of the year, which is I'm excited to hear what you have to say about these because I feel like at some point I read these and I was like, I read one or two of them and I was like,
yeah,
people think that Stan Lee can write comic books. I don't really know if that's true.
Stan Lee
there's a
can manage the hell out of a
bunch of
comic
it.
books
It was
business.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It'll show you what a
Uh,
big part Kirby and played
and
in the
Ditko and all
creation
that
of all
stuff.
these heroes. But yeah, that's really it. And then our live tomorrow, you can listen to my Christmas episode that I recorded with Kara. Or if you're a patron, you can listen to it now.
That's
So let
true.
us know what you thought about that one.
I thought you were about to pitch your own show. I was gonna have to cut you off.
Yeah, we were gonna totally just mute Danny.
I would never.
No. You can always, find Danny on the internet. He also records in the Next Issue podcast. We will 100% plug it. Of course, we will. We're slowly but
I
surely
thought
trying to
about
poach
tuning
him off of his own show, but it's fine.
Yeah,
We'll get
right.
it figured out. Well, I guess before I get
Negotiations
into
are
what's on
ongoing. Yeah.
yes. Before I get into my top of my pile pick, I do want to shout out some folks that are hanging out with us. If you're listening live, you've missed your chance. you have to come into the next live show and pitch your own book that you want to say that you're reading. But Kev's hanging out with us and is continuing his journey through One Piece. I'm very proud of you, Kev. I just want to say that is an epic journey. I did that recently, as you probably know, and it pays dividends week after week. I'm so glad that you're going through it. Paul G is reading Shuna's Journey. I also want to read this book. I just need to get a copy of it. And Matt said they were reading Step by Bloody Step. I hope you all are reading some really awesome. Oh, Danny, you got the One Piece trading cards. I forgot. You're killing me. I cannot get into that hobby. I've literally built a second bookshelf today, or fourth bookshelf in my house today, so that I could put more comics on it. Like, I cannot get into something like
don't do it.
trading card
Trading
games
cards are
because no, I just can't. How dare you? How dare you even show pictures of that to me? Because I could easily be swayed. But the book that I'm looking forward to reading next is Hitomi #1. This is by H.S. Tak, with art by Isabella Manzanti. The synopsis for this, someone recommended this to me weeks and weeks ago, and I snagged it, and I don't remember who it was. It might have been Danny. It might have been someone else on another podcast, maybe the guys over at Contest of Challengers. That's usually who I get weird random comic recommendations from. But the synopsis for this is: in feudal era Japan, a drifter with no prospects begins training in secret under Yasuke, a once famous disgraced warrior, as she struggles to find her place in a society entrenched in discrimination and violence. I heard this is fun, so I'm gonna check it out. It's a mini series.
It
That's
sounds
great.
fun.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I will say that the image pitch for this, I said this before we recorded, the image pitch for this has a second paragraph that's like, it's Kurosawa meets Quentin Tarantino. And I'm like, shut the fuck up, Image. You don't have to sell me comic books like this, right? Like,
That's
I
guaranteed to make me not read it.
I know, because like,
Lots
I
of lovingly
understand.
rendered feet in this comic.
Right. It's yes. But here's the thing. It's interesting to see someone like Image trying to pitch a comic book like that. I don't know who writes their synopsises, right? This might be HS Talk wrote a synopsis and they think this is a good way to sell their book. And if it is, I apologize. But like, to me, that kind of pitch only works once in a blue moon, to actually get me into a book. And you probably, if you're a longtime listener to the show, you've probably heard me pitch or hear like pitch books that I've read as X meets X earlier in this episode. I said it's like a comedy. Like, there are some things that we can compare to movie and TV, but sometimes a book synopsis and its art and all that stuff and its pitch should be able to stand on its own without having to take the shortcut of like grabbing a movie. But maybe that's just me. If you disagree, you can email me ircbpodcast@gmail.com. I will happily ignore that email. But it's just weird. But anyways, I'm excited to read this book because it looks great. I have it in my like library. I just need to actually sit down and read it. But yeah, it sounds fun. I'm excited to check it out, especially as a mini series. That's the kind of thing I could totally get on board for. Like, you're gonna sell me on all 5 of these issues so long as the first one is solid. So
it's also the book because like a lot of Tarantino's work is already influenced by Kurosawa. So like, what are you trying?
That's absolutely true. It's Kurosawa meets Kurosawa.
Yeah, this was more like, let me grab some words that are gonna look like pull up stuff on the
Sure.
or it was Todd McFarlane. I don't know. Maybe Todd McFarlane writes all these pitches, and the Todd father never always goes over the top. So.
I mean, CK in the chat does make a good point. It works sales wise. I totally understand that, but it's weird. Maybe this is just me being too entrenched in the comic book world and being like, the comic should be able to sell itself. But I also don't necessarily feel like that's a good way to pitch things, because somebody's interpretation of Tarantino may not be the same as the another person's, right? They may think, oh, Tarantino's a hack and I don't really care for his stuff, so maybe I shouldn't read this comic book. But that, I guess,
a hack, though.
Well, somebody. I'm not saying any specific person, Brian. I'm saying it. Oh, Brian's saying this. Okay, I see.
The problem, it's him.
Yeah. Anyways, yeah, well, I think that kind of wraps things up for today's episode. I don't know, any last parting things you guys want to get off your chest, other than Happy New Year? I hope your holiday was great and you celebrated and had a good time and got some fun gifts from friends and family and maybe drank some eggnog. But what about you guys?
I haven't really done my holiday stuff yet. We were gonna go out Friday and then Saturday, and then the worst blizzard in 50 years hit. So
True.
pretty much just been home.
I played
I'm very
Pokemon Go on
happy that,
Christmas Eve, so.
yeah, we didn't get any snow or precipitation. It was just cold.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you guys may remember last year, I'm in Texas, so like we don't do well with the cold and we don't do well with the snow. So this time around, it looks like everything held, at least where I live. So that was nice. I like snow more than I like seeing it perfect on the ground. Uh,
Yeah. I
so
dream of snow, but in New Jersey, in the East Coast where I live, we just don't get it anymore. So, it's cold, but in icy, and that's about it. But
Yeah, it looked pretty right until I opened my front door and had to push snow out of the way to do it.
yikes.
uh,
Well,
as
go
I
ahead.
say, I see those TikToks of people clearing their snow, and I'm like, oh, you poor person. Like it's all how long this took you, but
I don't remember those days fondly. I'll just say, like, Brian, you and I lived together for a while, back in Michigan, and I remember particularly there was one weekend where your car was so buried that like we spent half the morning just unburying it,
Yeah,
just so
it
that we
took
could
like
go to.
3 people 45 minutes to get my
Yeah,
car
like
out.
like like snow is taller than we were on top of your car. It was insane.
Yeah, it was the snow was up over the trunk in the back. So we literally
Yeah,
had to like dig my car out.
it's fun. It's not fun. Not fun. Um, well, I think that's gonna wrap us up for tonight. I hope folks enjoyed, doing a live episode like this, in the chat and stuff like that. Brian, Danny, I don't care what you think. By the way, so. But yeah, thank you guys for hanging out with us today. It was really, really fun. The next episode that you're gonna hear is gonna be coming out next. I guess tomorrow there will be an episode, the Christmas and holiday episode that we have coming out. The comic that Danny and Kara decided to read for that episode together is insane. One of them, especially the one that's on the cover. I can't believe that even exists. Like there's the KFC comic book, and you guys somehow found one that was more insane than like the KFC Green Lantern book. So
that was all
congratulations
Kara.
for
I
that.
can't take any credit for it.
Yeah, and after that, Paul and I are going to be talking about character relaunches as like part of the New Year thing. So look forward to that the week after, and then we'll be back to our regular schedule in January. So thank you all for hanging out. Maybe we'll do more of these in the future. If folks like them, make sure to come over to our Discord and say hello if you're not already a member there. I think a lot of the folks already were, but thank you all for supporting us. You can always find us on Twitter and Instagram, TikTok, Goodreads. Join our Goodreads challenge that's coming up. We wrapped the one for this year, but we're starting preparation for what's happening next year. Infinity Shred does all the music for us. They're the best band of the universe. You can find us on Patreon at patreon.com/IRCB podcast. Xander flies across the barriers of time and space, seeking a bright new dawn. But he didn't edit this episode. I just wanted to say hi to Xander. I want to say thank you to Brian and Danny. Thank you to everyone for hanging out with us live. You are wonderful, fantastic human beings. Thank you for getting to the end of this episode. That's going to be my new thing. And until next time, comics are good, and so are you. Thanks for hanging, everybody. Have a good one.
Bye.
Auf
Bye,
Wiedersehen. See you
everyone.
later.